Welcome to the deep dive. We're really glad you could join us today. Our lives are, well, they're kind of built on habits, aren't they? Big ones, small ones. And they're all woven together by something we maybe don't think about enough. Our daily routines. It's almost like the rhythm section. Keeping everything moving forward, a kind of silent conductor. So today, we're not just asking, hey, what does a typical day look like? We want to go deeper. Why do these rhythms actually matter? And how do they shape, well, everything? Our well-being, how effective we are?
That's a great way to put it, that rhythm idea. Because what's truly fascinating is how universal routines are, yet they're also intensely personal.
Yeah.
They're made up of all these little things we do, right? Often without really thinking, on autopilot sometimes.
Yeah.
When you add them all up, they basically define our day. And they're much more than just a schedule. They're like the underlying structure. They influence our productivity, sure, but also our mood, our focus, really, our sense of control.
Yeah, that sense of control is huge.
Absolutely. And whether you're, say, a student or maybe a busy professional or trying to juggle a bit of everything, routines can look completely different. But the basic idea, the purpose, it's usually the same. It's about providing structure, taking some of the decision-making load off your brain, which hopefully helps you feel, a bit more balanced and in charge of your time and energy.
That idea of reducing the cognitive load, that feels so, so important. It's something we maybe don't appreciate enough. And for this deep dive, we're not just going to talk abstractly, we want to make it concrete. We're actually going to unpack these ideas by looking at some real examples. We've got insights from two people, Jennifer and Daniel. They've shared the details of their daily structures, right from waking up to winding down.
Which is incredibly helpful seeing it in practice.
Exactly. So our goal here really is to give you a bit of a shortcut to understanding not just what they do day to day, but the thinking behind it, right? The how and the why.
Exactly. How these routines, especially when they're intentional, actually help create a life that feels, well, more productive, more managed.
And maybe even more fulfilling in the end. We're looking for those little nuggets of applied knowledge in their habits.
Precisely. We'll be looking at how they build momentum in the morning, how they keep that focus going in the afternoon, how they manage energy, and then crucially, how they consciously kind of shift gears and prepare for rest in the evening. It's like a little journey into practical habit science, really, and hopefully you can pull out insights for your own rhythm.
Okay, let's kick things off with the morning then, because there's just so much power in those first few hours, isn't there? The morning really does set the trajectory for the whole day. It impacts, well, everything from stress hormones to how well you make decisions later on. What you do right after you open your eyes can genuinely dictate the flow, the quality of the next, 16 hours?
Oh, absolutely. It really can. And looking at Jennifer and Daniel's routines straight away, you see how different approaches can still work, but you also see some common threads, some shared principles maybe. It really shows there isn't one single right way to start the day. It's more about finding effective principles that fit you.
Interesting. Okay, let's start with Jennifer. She's a student, so her mornings have a certain structure. But there's this deliberate, gentle quality to it that I found really insightful. She mentioned she usually wakes up around 7 a.m. Okay, but here's the interesting part, the intentional bit. She doesn't just jump out of bed. She actually prioritizes what she calls a gentle way to start the day. She takes a moment right there in bed to stretch and breathe before getting up. It's a conscious choice, like a tiny little routine to ease into being awake.
And that gentle way, as she calls it, it's more than just, feeling nice. There's some actual physiology behind it. When she stretches and breathes deeply like that, she's gently activating her parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. This helps kind of buffer that natural cortisol spike we all get when we wake up, which is good for alertness, don't get me wrong, but it can feel a bit jarring if it's too sudden. So this gentle start helps her body and mind ease into the day rather than sort of jolting into it. It sets a calmer tone right away.
That makes so much sense. And it's such a small thing, really accessible for almost anyone, isn't it? Okay, so after that moment of calm, then it's the more familiar stuff. Brushing teeth, washing her face. She said she finds that really refreshing. It's like a little ritual almost, signaling, okay, the day's starting now.
It really is a signal. And if we contrast that with Daniel, his job means he has to start earlier, around 6:30 a.m. So his routine adapts, right? But he still prioritizes those initial self-care steps. His very first habit, interestingly, is drinking a big glass of water. Hydration first. Then, just like Jennifer, it's brushing teeth, washing his face. He emphasized how that simple act really sets the tone for the day ahead. So see, Shared principle there, different start times, but both get the importance of those foundational steps right at the beginning.
And water, first thing. So many experts recommend that for just waking up the system gently. Okay, what about breakfast? Their choices there also seem to reflect their different needs. Jennifer goes for a light breakfast, she said, like oatmeal or toast. Something simple just to get her energy up before classes start. It sounds like it's about fueling efficiently, but without feeling, weighed down, keeping her mind clear for studying.
Yeah, efficiency seems key for her. Whereas for Daniel, breakfast is just as essential, but maybe a bit more substantial. He usually has eggs with toast, or sometimes he'll do a smoothie. For him, that fuel is really critical for what sounds like a more physically or mentally demanding day. What's interesting is, even though the foods are different, the purpose is the same. They're both preparing their bodies for what's coming up, getting that sustained energy. Jennifer's lighter choice might be about, quick glucose for mental focus. Daniel's protein might be more about feeling full longer, maybe muscle support too.
Different strategies, same goal. Fuel up upright.
Okay, so they've had breakfast. What's the very next step?
Yeah.
Because I noticed a common thread there too, in that immediate post-breakfast time. Feels like that's where the ritual preparation really kicks in. Getting organized. Jennifer mentioned that after breakfast, she'll check her class schedule, make sure she has everything she needs. Very practical planning. You're absolutely right. That's a key shared element, and it speaks directly to managing that cognitive load we talked about. Daniel does something similar. He takes a few minutes to check emails, maybe glance over his to-do list, so he knows, quote, what's on the agenda for the day.
Mm.
And this isn't just about, ticking boxes. It's about front-loading those decisions. By spending just a few minutes organizing early on, they cut down on the need to make decisions on the fly later, which frees up mental energy for the actual work, right?
Totally. That calm, organized start. It just makes such a difference, doesn't it? It builds this foundation of readiness. You feel less stressed if you don't feel like you're immediately behind or unsure what's next.
Exactly. It reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed before you've even really started.
So it really is about being proactive, not reactive. These little things, Jennifer's stretch, Daniel's water, their planning moments, they add up. The gentle waking helps the mind transition smoothly. Hydration gets the body systems going. And feeling organized. That's a huge psychological boost. Gives you a sense of control, reduces stress, builds confidence for the day.
Precisely. And each of these little routines can act as an anchor for the next one. It's like habit stacking, You use one habit you already do, like finishing breakfast, as the cue to start the next thing you want to do, like checking your schedule. Makes it easier to build these beneficial routines without just relying on pure willpower all the time.
That's a great way to think about it. Okay, that sets a really strong foundation for the day. Now let's shift gears and navigate into the afternoon. This is often the time when things get busiest, maybe most challenging for a lot of people. Sustaining focus, avoiding that classic energy slump, that becomes the name of the game, right? This is where that morning prep really gets tested.
Oh, definitely. The afternoon is prime time for our natural energy cycles, those ultradian rhythms, to maybe dip a bit. After maybe 90 minutes or 2 hours of intense focus, you might naturally feel a slump. So, yeah, strategic planning and especially mindful breaks become really, really important.
Right. Let's look at Jennifer again. She finds she's most focused during her afternoon classes or study sessions. Her strategy is simple but effective. Take it one step at a time, which is just great advice for anyone facing big tasks, helps avoid feeling overwhelmed. And she's aware of mental fatigue during those long study blocks, so she makes sure to take short breaks to stretch and move around. She explicitly said this helps keep her mind fresh. It shows she's kind of intuitively listening to her own cognitive needs.
That self-awareness is key. And Daniel's afternoons sound even more demanding. He described them as usually the busiest part of his day, packed with meetings or project work, high cognitive load there. But, similar to Jennifer, he consciously builds in breaks, even if they have to be brief sometimes. He finds that literally stepping away from the desk to stretch or get a snack really helps him recharge. This just underlines a universal truth, I think. It doesn't matter what kind of work you do. Taking intentional pauses isn't a luxury. It's vital, not just for your body, but for refreshing your mind. They're essential for sustained productivity, helping reset those cognitive resources.
And speaking of recharging, let's talk lunch, because what you eat midday can make or break your afternoon energy levels. What are their strategies for avoiding that dreaded post-lunch slump? Jennifer's approach seems really strategic. She usually has something light, like a salad or a sandwich, and she specifically said she avoids anything too heavy because it can make her feel sluggish. That's such a practical insight, isn't it? Heavy meals really do divert a lot of energy to digestion.
It's absolutely critical for energy management. Daniel seems to follow a similar path. Around noon, he makes it a point to step away from work completely for his lunch. That alone is significant. His choices are healthy too, quinoa salad with veggies or turkey sandwich. And his stated goal, to avoid that mid-afternoon energy slump. Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? How many of us actually step away fully? And how many of us make conscious food choices that fuel us instead of leading to that, post-meal brain fog, that energy slump or the postprandial dip? It's a real thing, often tied to how our body processes carbs and insulin. So their choices are smart.
Totally. Okay, so they've managed their energy with smart breaks and lighter lunches. How do they then approach their main tasks? Because there seems to be a clear strategy around allocating their energy effectively. Jennifer told us she tackles her bigger assignments in the afternoon, making sure they get done while she still has energy. It's like front-loading the demanding stuff.
And Daniel mirrors that exactly. After lunch, he focuses on key projects that require his attention.
Hmm.
And he tries to, in his words, knock them out while he's still feeling productive.
Hmm.
That intentionality is key. Getting the high-priority, mentally tough work done when your resources are highest. Instead of pushing it to the end of the day when you're tired and more likely to make mistakes or just procrastinate, it also probably helps avoid that feeling of unfinished business hanging over you, that Zeigarnik effect. By knocking out those big tasks, they free up mental space later on.
It's such a proactive way to manage your energy, not just your schedule. And we know the reasons for afternoon dips are real blood sugar changes, accumulated mental effort. So by choosing later meals, getting balanced nutrients, taking those breaks, they're tackling those challenges head on.
Yeah.
Breaks aren't just nice to have, they're essential for keeping your mind fresh. And there's definitely a psychological win too, right? Finishing something significant when you're feeling strong, it feels good, creates momentum.
Absolutely. It's all about working with your body's natural rhythms, not fighting against them, and consciously managing your brain's capacity for that deep, focused work.
Which leads us nicely into the evening. After a day that's hopefully been productive and well managed, it's time for the art of unwinding. That conscious shift from doing to being, preparing for rest. This transition feels so crucial, letting go of the day's pressures, allowing your nervous system to downshift.
It's incredibly critical, and honestly something that's easily overlooked in our, always-on world. Just jumping from work straight into chores, or just zoning out in front of a screen. It often prevents our body and mind from really entering that rest and digest mode, that parasympathetic state. Both Jennifer and Daniel seem to consciously build in a kind of buffer zone in their evenings.
Jennifer really emphasizes this transition. Her goal is to unwind and relax after a busy day of classes. So after dinner, she might take a short walk or do some light stretching. Specifically to help her de-stress, she called it a peaceful way to close out the day. That language itself tells you how important it is to her. It's an act of disengagement.
Daniel seems to share that philosophy. After work, he makes sure there's dedicated time to relax. For him, it might be listening to music or going for a walk. What's interesting is the flexibility. It's not one rigid thing, but the principle is creating space for decompression, allowing that fight-or-flight system, the sympathetic nervous system that was active all day, to start calming down. It's a good question for all of us, actually. What's your go-to for truly unwinding? Do you have one?
That's a great question. And their dinner choices seem to fit this unwinding theme, too. Daniel usually eats around 7 p.m. Something simple but satisfying, he said, like grilled salmon with veggies or a stir-fry. Jennifer also goes for ease. Quick and easy, like pasta with vegetables or a rice bowl. The common thread seems to be nourishing, but not stressful to prepare, and not so heavy or late that it messes with sleep later.
Exactly. And then we get to those pre-bed rituals. These might seem like tiny habits, but they have a huge signaling effect on the body, telling it, okay, time to prepare for sleep now. They're powerful psychological cues. They help train your brain for sleep.
Definitely. Jennifer makes sure she always brushes her teeth and washes her face. She described it as a small part of her routine, but it helps her feel refreshed and ready for bed. It's that consistency again, isn't it? The familiar action itself starts the mental shift.
Daniel used a great metaphor. He said it's like pressing the reset button after a long day, helping him shift into relaxation mode. That really captures the psychological power, doesn't it? These seemingly mundane habits, they create boundaries, clear transitions. They tell your brain the alert phase is over, the rest phase is starting. It's almost like conditioning.
And for that final stretch before actually sleeping, there's a very conscious effort from both to ditch the screens and find calm. What are their specific wind-down strategies there, and why are they so important?
Well, Daniel's approach is pretty classic and very effective. He usually reads a book or has a cup of herbal tea before bed. And crucially, he actively avoids screens. Jennifer does something similar, spending some time reading or listening to music. This is such a powerful choice. We know how disruptive that blue light from phones, tablets, TVs can be. It suppresses melatonin production, the hormone your body needs to feel sleepy and initiate sleep. And things like herbal tea, maybe chamomile, they often have compounds that naturally promote relaxation. It's a gentle nudge towards sleep. It's all about creating a sort of sleep sanctuary through these consistent calming actions.
And the final piece, maybe the most important for sleep quality, a consistent bedtime. Daniel aims for around 10 p.m., Jennifer around 10:30 p.m., and both explicitly mention feeling much better when they get a full night's sleep. Committing to a regular sleep schedule really anchors your body's internal clock, that circadian rhythm.
You really can't overstate how important these evening routines are. They are absolutely essential for mental and physical restoration. By avoiding screens, doing calming things like reading, sticking to a schedule, Jennifer and Daniel are setting themselves up for proper rest. That's when your body and mind repair themselves, consolidate memories, truly rejuvenate. It's about being as intentional about the end of your day as you are about the beginning. Because honestly, how good your next day is often depends directly on how well you slept the night before. These evening rituals are the gatekeepers to that.
So, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, the core message feels really clear. Daily routines, whether they're for work, study, or just managing life, they are absolutely key. Key to staying organized, feeling like you're in control. We saw how Jennifer and Daniel, even with different lives, both use structure to their benefit. And the takeaway isn't to copy their exact schedule, right? It's about understanding the principles and then finding what truly works best for you.
Exactly. And if we zoom out a little, routines aren't just about ticking off tasks or being productive. They are
Mhm.
fundamentally about creating space, those essential moments, to relax, to recharge, to actually take care of yourself. It's that balance, which can be tricky to find, between structured activity and genuine self-care. That balance is what allows for, well, sustained well-being, better performance, and maybe a deeper sense of just flourishing. They're really the bedrock of managing your energy, helping you handle life's demands without burning out.
Which brings up a really important question for you listening right now. As you think about your own daily patterns, how are they really serving you? Are they just things you kind of fell into? Or are they intentional choices designed to support your energy and your well being?
Yeah, we challenge you to think not just about what you do each day, but why you're doing it. And consider how even small tweaks, really intentional adjustments to your rhythm, maybe it's adding that morning stretch like Jennifer, just to gently wake up your system. Or maybe it's a short midday walk like Daniel to reset your focus. Or even just switching from screen time to reading before bed to help your sleep. How could those small changes impact your overall sense of balance, your well-being? So here's a final thought to mull over. If you were to intentionally design just one reset button moment into your day, maybe piggybacking on a habit you already have, what would that moment be? And how do you imagine it might transform, maybe even just slightly, your next 24 hours?
Some really good food for thought there. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We really hope this conversation gave you some useful insights, maybe inspired you to look at your own rhythm a bit differently, with a fresh perspective on the why behind it. Keep experimenting, find what feels right for you, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.